Miracle's assets. It's gonna be a great review, guys. Miracle's awesome. But seriously saying, right? But I want to talk about manga and anime difference here, right? So I think this will be a good review if you're an anime only, like I am. I am actually anime only. However, I have read the manga for last season, right? So if you ignore this amazing Miracle scene, right? I think this video can be really good if you're an anime only, because I want to talk about the Hawks and the Twice interaction, right? And how that's very different here in the anime than how it was in the manga. What I focus on in this review here is explaining this stuff here, right? So we have the Hawks and Twice interaction. You obviously know that they're like besties now, right? Like, you know, our boy Hawks, of course, now, being a fake, you know, he's a triple agent, there it's called, right? The thing is that when I watched the episode, I was really perplexed because, of course, the episode has some recap, right? The beginning is just straight up recap before the opening. Great new opening. I love the 80s style, you know, kind of the classic old school cartoon and so on. And then it was this thing, right? And this thing here was a mixture of recap, but it also had some new dialogue and new scenes too, with Hawk talking twice, right? And then of course we got into Miracle and Endeavor being badass. So the ending was really good, right? I mean, you know how much I love Miracle. She's my wife, right? If there's one character I really love in Academia, it's Miracle, right? By far. If you check out my waifu list, I can link below for that. Obviously Miracle is number one. Like, spoilers, but yeah, everyone knows Miracle. Anyway, what's important here though is that this scene here is actually supposed to be way earlier, yeah. Because I was watching it again, so I was perplexed. I was like, is this a recap? Or is this a new scene? But it actually is supposed to be an old scene. You know what I mean? Because as a manga reader, so to speak, then, in this specific episode, right, I really was kind of honestly confused then, because I was like, have I seen this before? Have I read it? I know it might sound weird saying that, but if you're an anime only, blah, 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 so on. But just to explain again, right? I think we have to go back and explain the backstory. So if you don't know, last season 5, they really changed a lot of these events, right? I made a video about it last year, but they basically changed a lot of the order of stuff. So like, for example, episode 112, I believe, and 13, they're supposed to actually be way earlier. It's supposed to be connected to like episode like 98 or something. So they kind of mixed that up. And this in here then, of course, with Twice and Hawks, is supposed to be way earlier. So most of the Hawk scenes are supposed to be before we have the war scene we had that season, right? With Shigaraki and so on, you know, taking over the evil stuff, right? The liberation, yeah. Taking over that stuff is supposed to be actually be after most of the Hawk and Twice interaction and dialogue and so on. So in the manga when you're reading it, it is much more already portrayed, right? The Shigaraki has already won or whatever. In that sense, there's no like who's gonna beat Redestro, but it is more, the Hawk storyline is more intense because he has already like, oh shit, the clock's ticking, right? Where in the anime, because they kind of played out in a very different order, it's kind of strange. So that's one thing about immediate here. This is supposed to again to be much earlier, and the Hawk and the Endeavor interaction is supposed to be a lot more high tension. Because as the reader, we already know that they're planning to, you know, destroy Japan or whatever, right? Whereas in the manga, in the anime then, it was much later, right? Basically the end of the season, explaining the true motivation or whatever, right? So it really changed that dynamic between Endeavor, Twice, and Hawks then. So that's one major thing. But also, as I said then, this scene here is a mixture of recap, but also a scene that's supposed to be way earlier. So even if I am an anime only, right? And as I keep saying, it's weird to say that, but I have read the manga up to last season, right? So that also gave me a weird feeling, because I'm sure I'm an anime only, that I haven't read further, right? I only read up to episode 113, of course, but I'm sure I've seen this thing before, even though it is not recap kind of, right? So I was like, yeah, did I read this thing? Yeah, I did, because I read chapter, you know, like 250 or whatever, right? And that chapter was this thing. There's like 50 chapter earlier in the current storyline. So it's that kind of honestly weird mixture where I feel like, yeah, this episode actually took place, but it took place like, it should have been maybe episode 104 or something like that, like 10 episodes prior. So it's a very weird feeling, honestly. And it is strange. And I don't want to dwell on it too much here, but the issue with last season, not only did they skip over some of the backstories of some of the bad guys mostly, right? Especially Spinners, but they also changed the events. So not only did they like, how to say it, put them in order, they changed a lot of events, and especially I think it's most of the as I mentioned in the end of last season, where we have like Ashido and so on training. That's supposed to be with another training thing instead of having it's not supposed to be like 2 different training days. It's supposed to be 1 training day, and they kind of took them 10 episodes. It's very confusing, okay? And the order changed the order. It's very, very confusing, seriously, what they did last season. And I think this episode here, then, talking about that, kind of comes to a conclusion where I'm like, this isn't terrible, but it is weird that it's played out now when it should have been much earlier. Not all of it, of course, but most of it, right? And I think that gives a lot of weirdness to it. So in the manga, it's basically gonna start with the raid, right? This episode could have started better. So if the anime had followed the manga more correctly, this is basically what episode could have started. Sure, a little bit of Hawk scene could have been shown anyway, and there would be some recap and so on, right? Obviously, it's a 60 to recap, but this is kind of where the episode would have started if you follow the manga. So honestly, yeah, like I said, I read up to that point, right, and then it's kind of where we are, right, when the anime should have ended, and then of course this thing's gonna start and go over to the Endeavor journey as well, right? So it is very confusing, and I think it felt extra confusing, as I keep saying, because it was a mixture of recap and then also like redoing some scenes, right? And yeah, it is. I find it's weird. They really ruined that. Like to some extent, they kind of ruined that Hawks and Twice stuff. But this is a review, talk about the good stuff, right? Of course, I love this scene when they kind of, Eraserhead put all his powers. The old crazy doctor guy goes down to the ground and it's all like, oh no, don't kill me, oh yeah. So this was great, right? He was pathetic, he was a loser, loved that shit, yeah, seeing them own him. He could have an escape plan. I'm most surprised. So this is all new for me, right? Yeah. So this I haven't read, right? So that's my point again. I should point out there. This I had no idea what's gonna happen, right? I kind of course figure out the attacking, but I have no idea what's gonna happen here. So I love this scene, right? They're coming in here, but I still guessed, of course, he was gonna have some escape plan because he's like crazy doctor, right? So that was awesome. Loved the Endeavor intimidation and so on, and Sensei Mick being angry and so on. Great scene. Then of course it's followed by Best Waifu. I talked about it in the rest, but Best Waifu Mirko. I freaking love Mirko. So my video yesterday I have a huge Mirko poster, a huge Mirko painting over there. It had the gym, you know, she's showing off her ass and so on. It's a very, very cool poster. Probably my hottest poster I have. Yeah, it's my most white poster I have, right? I think this poster behind me are hot. No, the Mirko poster, but I can't show it on YouTube. I only showed, you know, my video yesterday, I'm only showing her face, you know. I can't show the rest of it. But anyway, obviously I love this last part. It was so good. Like, following, yeah, Endeavor and so on being badass and scaring him, right? Yeah, and then we see Mirko killing all the Nomus, and this scene was so funny too, right? Badass, she also badass, funny wife, right? She comes in, destroys this Nomu. He's like, no! And Nomu's like, Mirko's like, what, did I kill it? Like, oh yeah, I did! Ah! Yeah, she's like, because it's like evil, happy smile, like, yeah, you saw that? Frank, yeah. It was awesome. So, I mean, I love the episode. The end of it was really, really good, yeah. The end was fantastic. And I'm happy, of course, to see so much Mirko. And next episode, the preview into 2, right? There was a lot of Mirko in the preview. She gets kicked in the face, she gets bloody, but she's getting pissed off, right? So next episode looks really lit, right? We're gonna have, like, I guess Mirko fighting some stronger Nomus, Endeavor probably fighting 2, right? So it could probably be an Endeavor Mirko fighting out this episode, and we might see, I guess, the other the kids or so whatever going, yeah, the teenagers, or whatever they are, right, going into the, you know, the massive place, right? But anyway, guys, please subscribe. Do you agree with me? Maybe I missed something, right? Again, I'm not a full man. I mean, again, I am an anime only, right? So if you read the manga from the beginning, but I know a lot of people commented that, and we did those. Yeah, last year I did like a stream where I read the manga, right? And I did a comparison. So I'll leave a link below for that. And yeah, so if you're a real, you know, full-on manga reader, right? What do you guys think? I feel I've given a pretty good explanation here on how it's confusing, because yeah, the first 10 minutes is kind of like, it's supposed to be like 10 episodes earlier, and it's a mixture with recap. So yeah, yeah. But anyway, guys, please subscribe to the like button, and I'll see you guys later now with Spy X Family.